Well, the village of Leponge has borne the brunt of this. 183 houses have been destroyed here, and cruelly, why some of them are absolutely fine. The one behind me and so many others are completely gutted, and it just goes to show how erratic, how unpredictable this fire is. On the 10-minute drive in here, either side of the road, everything was completely blackened. It was smouldering. It's devastated these communities. It's devastated the natural environment, and it will continue to do so because wildfires like this can take weeks and even months to extinguish. Croatian helicopters caught the Inferno in Gironde from above. A multi-country response still unable to contain this. France's largest wildfire since World War II. Today, below in a forest near the city of Bordeaux, the flames had only just been snuffed out when another fire started. 6 fire engines have just arrived to tackle that blaze over there. I've just been told that it only started 10 minutes ago, and really that's all it takes. Just the smallest ember, as long as it has material to burn, will blow up into something like that very quickly. Moments later, with flames dwarfing the fire engines, a plane carrying fire retardant flew over, as well as helicopters carrying water. And they kept coming. This firefighter shouted for the team to head in a different direction as another front opened up. It's relentless, exhausting and dangerous work, with 4 injured overnight. Something is happening here that has never happened before in France. The wildfire burning so large and hot that it's created a firestorm with its own microclimate called a pyrocumulonimbus, generating winds and lightning that can restart fires elsewhere. Can you tell me why it's so difficult to contain this kind of fire?
C'est très difficile parce que d'abord c'est un feu qui est
It's so difficult because it's very, very big. It's now more than 100,000 acres, which has never happened before.
Je dirais bombe nucléaire météorologique.
It is, to be frank, a meteorological nuclear bomb. It is changing all the time.
Du périmètre dans lequel on est change continuellement.
Hundreds of homes have been destroyed, but firefighters managed to save this one. Raging fires getting less than a metre from its fence. The scale of devastation to this southwestern region of France is not yet clear, and won't be until the wildfire is put out entirely, something emergency service unions warned could take months.
Nous n'avons pas de chiffres aujourd'hui exacts.
We don't yet have precise figures on the scale of the damage to wildlife, but it's clear that by the end of the summer the numbers are going to be catastrophic.
Chiffres catastrophiques.
Europe is the fastest heating continent on Earth, with record temperatures driven up by fossil fuel pollution. Across the border, Spain endured another night of flames. This apocalyptic scene captured by the Spanish Civil Guard shows a fire as it encroaches onto a highway. Emergency responders pushed back by the sheer force of the blaze. This is its largest wildfire in modern history, destroying nearly 200,000 acres. This morning, just 50 kilometres from the capital, Madrid, the scorched remains of Chapineria, a rural village that was evacuated on Friday. A new fire is now spreading near Valencia in the eastern Castellón province. It's already forced 16,000 people from their homes, with no word on when they'll be able to return or what they'll be returning to.
And Emilia is still with us. Emilia, I gather the President Macron's just turned up in Bordeaux.
Yes, President Macron arrived an hour or so ago. He was there to meet emergency workers in Bordeaux, and they told him that climate change had really changed their job. They're used to fighting wildfires in the summer, but this is something that's altogether different. He asked them what they needed. They said they wanted more helicopters, they wanted more air power, and an international coordination effort is underway to that effect. Luckily, in the past 24 hours, there's been a little bit of rain and humidity, which has helped, but there are real concerns because this week another heat wave is about to descend. It could be, or it will be, hotter than 37 degrees with no rain until Saturday, and that can make conditions here really, really challenging.
Emilia, thank you very much indeed, in what used to be the village of Leponge in the southwest of France. Now, as the intense wildfires continue to rage in Spain and France, several in England, Wales and Scotland in recent days and weeks have also taken place, and all eyes are on what the weather is going to do here in the coming days. Well, our weather presenter, Liam Dutton, joins me now. Liam. What is in store for us?
Well, Matt, what Western Europe really needs at the moment is a combination of cool air and rainfall, and it will see neither of those this week. Why? Well, another major heat wave is imminent. We can see exactly what's going on here. It's a familiar sight, a big area of high pressure, again extending across the continent, bringing day after day of sunshine, rising temperatures and a lack of rainfall. And on top of that, by the middle of the week, southern and western parts of Europe will be very hot, temperatures widely in the mid to high 30s, in some places it's passing 40 degrees, which is exactly what you don't want to hear when you're fighting wildfires.
So how will that patch of deep orange and red affect us here?
Well, the UK is on the periphery of that heat wave, but it will graze into southern and eastern parts of England for the middle part of the week. So you can see here on Wednesday, East Anglia and South East England will reach the low to mid 30s, but it's brief. It's only for a day. So by the end of the week here, that hot air will be confined to Europe and will be a much cooler and fresher air.
And how does climate change scientifically affect this heat wave?
Well, climate change makes heat waves more intense, more frequent and longer lasting in the UK, Europe and around the world. And that creates the environments in which these wildfires can thrive and spread more easily.
Liam, thanks very much indeed. Well, as global temperatures increase, climate scientists have become increasingly concerned about recent policy changes by governments across the world. As heat waves and wildfires spread across Europe, is the world going backwards in the political fight against climate change? According to analysts, the past 12 months have seen global leaders make a raft of decisions in favour of fossil fuels, like the EU, which watered down plans to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles by 2035, meaning that only 90% would now have to be electric. In Germany, leaders dropped plans to effectively outlaw new gas boilers, instead opting for a more gradual switch to renewables. Then there's New Zealand, where the ruling coalition voted to bring back oil and gas exploration, lifting a ban introduced in 2018. In Ecuador, home to part of the Amazon rainforest, President Daniel Noboa scrapped the country's environment ministry as part of an efficiency drive. Critics said the move weakened climate protections. In Brazil, the state-run oil company Petrobras was granted permission for exploratory drilling in the sea near the mouth of the Amazon River. It could start oil and gas production within 7 years if large reserves are found. And in the US, where President Trump called climate change the greatest con job in the world, he scrapped the endangerment finding, the legal basis for regulating greenhouse gas emissions on everything from vehicles to power plants. The US also officially withdrew from the Paris Agreement to limit the rise in global temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius. And here in the UK, there are reports that Prime Minister Andy Burnham will soon approve plans for new North Sea drilling, which has drawn fierce protests. Scotland's oil and gas fields, Rosebank and Jackdaw, had already been approved by the Conservative government, but were put on hold by legal action. Well, Nick Bridge is a former diplomat and was the UK Special Representative to the UN on climate change from 2017 to 2023. He's now Strategic Advisor on the climate crisis at Chatham House. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So we have these extraordinary pictures. We get them every year, to be honest, but they seem to get worse every year as well. And at the same time, in the same period, there's backsliding on policy across the board, as I just showed, for tackling climate change. What's going on?
Well, like you say, we've been saying for 20, 30, 40 years this is coming, and your previous report just showed it's here in ever greater scale. And these fires replicate the huge ones we saw across Russia, across Canada, across the US, heat, drought. So it couldn't be clearer, one would think.
So why do politicians think that there are votes in not tackling it?
It is a tricky one because we've always had overwhelming public support for action. But I think we haven't caught up with the fact that almost any and all economic action on this agenda to clean up our air, change our transport, change our energy systems, nearly all of it is really good for the economy, cheaper, much richer in jobs, much richer in new industries all around the country. So this should be an open goal, particularly for a new administration that is saying, okay, place-based, community-driven, well-being and health and so on. So I think that we haven't caught up, and there are a lot of corporate and a lot of government interests that are pushing back, saying, hang on, steady on, not so fast.
But is that because the debate is framed along the lines of it's either the cost of living or it's climate change. And actually, it could be both, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we don't deal with climate change, it might be a lot more
Yeah.
in terms of cost of living.
Yeah. And I think we always say, people in my line of work, every time you have these, shattering images, you just want people to then relate it to the root causes. And the root causes here around emissions, we're considering North Sea oil all around the world. You have, certain politicians drill, baby drill, and so on. And it really is absolutely, crazy at this point to be contemplating, investing.
But even this new government, Andy
fuels.
Burnham's government, is thinking of, reopening drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea.
So those fields were...
Are they wrong to do that?
They would be, yes. Those fields were approved by the previous government without even asking the impact that the emissions from them would have on the environment. That's why there was a review. There's discussion that this is maybe a tactical thing, that actually the investment won't actually go into the North Sea, it's not profitable, or that it's a bit of sort of red meat.
But the fact that he feels the need to make it a tactical thing, that speaks volumes.
I think it would be better to be honest and look at the way, for example, something that's quite under-discussed on the North Sea is how it increases the overall supply of fossil fuel. If we don't take it from overseas and we do it, in the North Sea, you're still generating a bigger market in fossil fuel and emissions, and you're literally putting fuel on the fire of these events around the world.
I mean, so much energy in this country comes from renewable energy sources. On certain days, 70% of the electricity we consume comes from wind. Not every day, of course, and a lot of it from solar as well. Is it that politicians aren't telling the story properly? The good story, the positive story, that it veers on the side of the negative?
Well, first of all, look at the opposite. Look at the sort of vested interest. So Ed Miliband was simply, largely saying, let's stop contributing to climate change. He had over 200 targeted editorials against him in the last couple of years, and the current...
Blaming some of the media.
Some of the media absolutely is shocking on this, and the interests behind the media, the ownership of the media, the agenda of the media, and the agenda of many corporates. And also, many corporates are just looking after their near-term profitability. So what it needs is a really grasping of the political agenda to understand that this is actually a hugely positive story for the country. But you have to get that narrative right.
Of course, those interests would say, it's the other side that's politically interested. You're pushing an agenda.
An agenda to make the planet livable. And,
one interesting thing is even the Green Party, has decided that it would rather talk about social injustice and cost of living than the climate. Does that strike you as odd?
I think that's a very different issue, actually. I think with the Greens, they are well known for their position on all of this stuff, and they need to show a wider range of voters that they...
but this is their moment to connect the dots, isn't it?
It is, and then let's hope that they do that. But I think it's a very different story at the other end of the political spectrum, and there's a lot of agendas behind the scenes about really making money and continuing to make money in those industries. Now, there's no question the transition is a difficult one. There'll be winners and losers, but for the everyday members of the public, this is absolutely a positive, and that's the narrative we need to encourage Andy Burnham to bring in.
Nick Bridge, thank you very much indeed.